On her 75th birthday, an old woman sat alone at a long restaurant table meant for 10 guests, staring at empty chairs while the candlelight flickered, as if even the room felt her silence. Colorful balloons floated behind her, untouched, unmoving, like time had paused just to watch a celebration that never began, while waiters exchanged quiet glances, unsure whether to approach or stay away. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments what time it is and where you are watching from, because this story might hit closer to home than you expect. At the bar, a well-dressed billionaire froze mid-sip when he overheard her gently asking the waiter to cancel every reservation, her voice calm but carrying something painfully final. He didn't mean to stare, but when she quickly wiped a tear and forced a small smile, something about her quiet strength unsettled him in a way no loss or failure ever had. The waiter hesitated, offering to keep one seat open, but she shook her head softly, saying there was no need, because the people she had been waiting for had already made their choice. Her voice stayed steady, but her hands trembled as she adjusted the untouched plates, each one carefully placed for someone who once promised they would never forget her special day. The billionaire leaned closer without realizing it, drawn into a moment that didn't belong to him, as she whispered something so soft, yet so heavy, it changed everything. "I just didn't want them to feel guilty for not coming," she said quietly. And those words didn't just reach him, they stayed, like a truth he had been avoiding for years. Something shifted inside him instantly, not loud, not dramatic, but deep enough to make him question memories he had long buried under work, success, and distance. He slowly placed his glass down, no longer interested in anything around him, as her words began to echo, pulling him into thoughts he had spent years running from. For a moment, he told himself to ignore it, to walk away like always, but something about her acceptance made that impossible, as if leaving now meant losing something important forever. Before he could stop himself, he stood up, his body moving ahead of his thoughts, drawn toward a stranger whose pain felt uncomfortably familiar. As he approached, the restaurant noise faded into the background, and all he could see were the empty chairs, each one silently telling a story of promises that were never kept. She looked up as he reached the table, quickly hiding her sadness behind a polite smile, the kind people wear when they are tired of explaining why they are hurting. He hesitated, a man used to control now, unsure of every word, as if no amount of confidence could prepare him for something this real, this personal. "Excuse me," he said softly. "I didn't mean to overhear, but are you still expecting someone, or have they just not arrived yet?" Trying to sound careful, not intrusive, she gave a small nod, her expression calm, almost practiced, and replied that they were expected, but life had simply become too busy for people to remember things like this anymore. There was no anger in her voice, no blame, just a quiet acceptance that somehow made it heavier, as if she had already forgiven them long before they thought to apologize. And in that moment, something unfamiliar settled in his chest, a realization he couldn't ignore anymore, as he wondered how many important moments he himself had quietly missed. He slowly pulled out the chair across from her and asked if he could sit for a moment, not out of curiosity anymore, but because something about her silence felt heavier than anything he had faced in years. She nodded gently, without questioning him, as if strangers had become easier to accept than the people who once meant everything to her, but slowly chose to disappear from her life. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke, and the silence between them felt full, not empty, as if it carried years of unspoken words waiting for someone to finally listen. Unable to ignore it any longer, he asked why she still prepared the table for so many people if deep down she already knew they would not come. She looked down at the plates, her fingers lightly tracing their edges, and said that some habits are not built from logic, but from love, and love is not something that fades easily. Every year, she explained, she booked the same table, holding on to the hope that maybe this time things would be different. Maybe this time someone would remember without needing a reminder. Her voice stayed calm, but her eyes carried something deeper. Years of quiet waiting, years of making excuses for others, years of choosing patience over pain. He felt his chest tighten as her words began to reflect pieces of his own life, moments he had dismissed, calls he had delayed, people he had unintentionally left waiting. Trying to understand more, he asked if she had ever called them, given them a chance to explain, but she slowly shook her head, her answer simple yet heavy. "I stopped asking a long time ago," she said softly, her voice steady but filled with a quiet kind of strength that only comes from repeated disappointment. She paused briefly, then added something that shifted the moment even deeper, something that didn't just explain her pain, but revealed how she had learned to live with it. "It's easier to believe they are busy," she said, "than to accept that they simply chose not to come." And those words settled in a way that couldn't be ignored. He looked away for a second, suddenly remembering missed calls, unread messages, and moments he had convinced himself were not urgent, not realizing how much they might have mattered. The restaurant around them continued as normal, but for him everything felt quieter now, heavier, as if her story had changed the meaning of the entire room. Then she said something unexpected, something that made him look back at her instantly, her expression calm, but her words carrying a quiet finality. "I used to wait like this for my husband too," she admitted, her voice distant, as if she was speaking from a place she had visited too many times before. "Until one day he stopped coming home altogether," she continued, "and that's when I realized that waiting does not bring people back, no matter how much you believe it will." The truth in her words settled deeply, revealing not just loneliness, but a lifetime of silent heartbreak that had slowly shaped the way she saw the world. She took a slow breath before saying something that felt even heavier than everything before, something that connected her past to her present in a painful way. "And maybe without realizing it," she said quietly, "I taught my children the same thing, that it's okay to leave someone waiting." And this time she couldn't hide the pain in her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek, slow and quiet, but heavy enough to carry years of silence, as if, in that moment, she finally allowed herself to feel everything she had been holding back. He felt something tighten inside his chest, not out of sympathy, but recognition, because her regret didn't feel distant. It felt dangerously close to something he might one day become. For the first time that night, he stopped seeing her as a stranger, and instead saw her as a reflection, a warning of what happens when people slowly stop showing up for the ones who matter. He leaned back slightly, his thoughts no longer clear or controlled, as if everything he believed about his life was quietly being questioned in a way he couldn't ignore anymore. Almost without thinking, he reached for his phone, his fingers hovering above the screen as if one simple call could force him to face everything he had been avoiding. Names appeared in front of him, familiar, important, yet distant. People he claimed to love but rarely gave time to. People who might already feel the same way she did now. His thumb paused, unable to press anything, because deep down he knew this wasn't just about making a call, it was about admitting the truth he had been hiding from himself. Across the table she watched him quietly, her expression calm, almost knowing, as if she had seen this moment before, not just in him, but in many others who came too late. I used to believe they would come someday, she said gently, her voice steady, but filled with the kind of exhaustion that only comes from waiting too long without answers. But waiting has a way of changing
you. Keep walking through the shadows.
It slowly teaches you that hope can also become a kind of pain when it is not returned. Her words didn't just explain her feelings. They revealed something deeper, something about how love, when ignored long enough, begins to turn into quiet acceptance. He listened without interrupting, because he knew this wasn't just her story. It was becoming his, unfolding right in front of him.
When the world gets way too heavy,
she reached
I'll be holding up your sky. You don't have to say my name, I'll still hear you in the dark. Even if you never notice,
something inside
I've been with
him broke at that moment, not loudly, not visibly, but deeply enough to make him feel like he was losing control of something
if you
he had
stumble, if you
always
fall,
taken for granted.
If your light begins to fade,
she asked,
I'll be right
lifting
there
her eyes
in the
toward
silence,
her voice calm,
making sure
but
you're
holding
not
something much
afraid. You don't have to look behind,
unable to form
I'll
words,
be there just out of sight. When the world gets way too heavy, I'll be holding up your sky. You don't have to say my name, I'll still hear you in the dark. Even if you never notice, I've been with you,
forcing him to confront a truth he had avoided for years without even realizing. In that moment, he saw flashes of his own life. Birthdays missed, calls ignored, messages left unanswered, all justified by reasons that suddenly felt empty. He remembered someone waiting for him once, someone who had believed he would show up, and how easily he had convinced himself that he could make it up later. The weight of those memories pressed
I'll be holding up your sky. You don't have to say my name, I'll still hear you in the dark. Even if you never notice, I've been with you.
A realization forming that he could no longer ignore, something that connected him to her story in a way he hadn't expected. I think I might be one of them, he admitted quietly, his voice stripped of confidence, leaving only honesty behind as he finally faced what he had become. The words felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, but also necessary, as if speaking them out loud was the first real step toward understanding everything he had been avoiding. She looked at him not with anger or blame, but with a calm understanding, as if she had seen this realization many times before, always arriving later than it should have. Then maybe it's not too late, she said gently, her voice soft, but carrying a meaning far deeper than the simplicity of the words themselves. Her response didn't comfort him, it challenged him, because now he couldn't hide behind excuses. Now he had to choose whether he would change or remain the same absence. He looked at her for a long moment, then slowly nodded, as if making a decision that had nothing to do with success, but everything to do with the kind of person he still wanted to be. Without saying anything else, he raised his hand and quietly signaled the waiter, asking them not to clear the table yet, as if those empty chairs still deserved to be acknowledged. She watched him closely now, her eyes searching his face, sensing that this was no longer just a moment of sympathy, but something real beginning to take shape. He picked up his phone again.
I just stand here in the silence while I watch you let me go. You're walking with somebody else, like I never crossed your mind, and I'm drowning in this feeling that I'll never leave behind.
He missed them, his voice carrying
I could scream, but what's the reason?
For years,
You were never really mine.
Not cold,
so I bury all the pieces,
as if they were not used
and
to
pretend that I'm
over everything else.
It's raining deep inside my heart, but I don't let it
the
show.
words simple,
I just stand here
but
in
real
the
enough to begin
silence
repairing
while I watch
something
you
that
let
had been
me
slowly
go.
breaking over time.
You're walking with
As he
somebody
spoke, the old
else,
woman's expression
like I
softened,
never
not because
crossed your
everything was
mind.
suddenly fixed,
And I'm
but because
drowning
she
in
knew
this
how difficult it
feeling
is to
that
take
I'll
the first
never
honest
leave
step toward change.
behind.
When the call ended, he held the phone for a moment longer, as if realizing how close he had been to losing something he had always assumed would be there. Then he looked back at her, his expression no longer distant or guarded, but hopeful,
Call your name out
as if
loud.
he had finally allowed
I
himself
won't
to
ask
feel
you to stay
something
now.
real again.
If you're
My
happy
mother
where
used
you
to wait
are,
like this too, he
I'll
said
just
softly,
fade
his
into
voice
the
lowered,
crowd.
and I thought I had time.
It's raining
Until
deep
one day,
inside my
there was no
heart,
more time left.
but I
He
don't
gently
let
pulled
it
one
show.
empty plate closer
I
and
just
said
stand here
quietly,
in the silence
"If you don't
while
mind,
I watch
I don't
you
think
let
anyone
me
should have
go.
to sit through something
You're
like
walking
this
with
alone."
somebody
Candles
else,
flickered softly
like I never
as she
crossed
smiled
your
for the first time,
mind,
and in
and
that
I'm
quiet
drowning
moment,
in this
the emptiness
feeling
reminding us to show up before it's too late.
that I'll
Like,
never
subscribe,
leave behind.
and return for more.